So if you think about it, we only have 24 hours in a day. 8 of those are going to be spent sleeping. 8 of those are probably going to be spent at work, let alone the travel time in between work. Then you've got meal times, then you've got chores. And when you really get down to it and past the getting ready and just the normal parts of the day, you probably only have 4 discretionary hours left in the day. And when you think about the law of entropy, just from a probability perspective, there are lots of different ways the day could go. You could come home and watch TV. You could come home and work on your meaningful project. You could come home and someone interrupts your day. You could come home and you're going to spend time with friends. There are hundreds of ways that you could spend your evening, but you have, probably without realizing it subconsciously, you have a way that you think would be perfect for the evening to go, but that's only one option. Out of hundreds of options for how the day could go, only one of them is perfect. And the odds are not in your favor that it's going to go that way by happenstance. It takes design. And that is what the power of goal setting is. It's prioritizing and selecting and designing the life you want. That starts with your days. But a lot of people set goals, and most people who set New Year's resolutions are not going to have followed through on them by the end of the year. And so people might just say, oh, that's just because goals just don't work. But no, actually studies have shown that when you set goals, when you write them down, you're more likely to actually achieve those things. And it's not the setting goals that's the problem, it's the setting the wrong type of goals. Now, there are certain systems that have tried to remedy this, like SMART goals, making sure they're specific enough, but they actually are falling short for a lot of people. And the point of goals is not to be just busy or productive or getting a lot of things done that you don't want to do. The point is to design a life that you actually want to have. So if you get done goal setting and you feel like, ugh, this is going to be a lot of work, I don't want to do this, that is not a meaningful goal that you will actually follow through on. In this video, I'm talking about goals that are actually meaningful to you. And I sell a planner that I'll link on the screen, but people use it to plan worldwide trips around Antarctica, to do cycling trips across the US. Multiple books have been written, multiple albums on Spotify. I used the process, for my own YouTube channel, but aside from my YouTube channel, people have 15,000 subscriber YouTube channels. So we're talking about meaningful things, meaningful projects that have been buzzing around in the back of your head. And if you don't know what that is that you want, go back to the first video in this series, and it really walks you through figuring out, what do you want to do? What would be meaningful to you? The second video that I just did is all about believing in yourself. And this video is about taking that goal and that dream that we want, and we are going to set a goal. In the next video, we're going to create an action plan, because most people don't create action plans, and that is where everything really falls through. We need to make sure that we have all of the different criteria that's in a good action plan. But in this video, we're going to set a good goal. So it's just 3 steps, and in my opinion has been much more effective than the SMART goal template. The first thing we're going to outline is the what. Now, this 3-step exercise that I'm going to take you through is the first page in a free PDF, which I will have linked in the description. I'll pin a comment. You can download it, do it on your iPad, print it off as a piece of paper, copy it down in a journal. But I have a worksheet for you if you want to follow along that way. So the first thing I want you to do is just think back to the first video and very simply think about, what do you want to have? Now, a lot of times when people think about what they want to have, it's kind of a flashy goal. Like, I want to lose 100 pounds. I want to have 10,000 subscribers. I want to make $10,000 per month in my business by the end of this year. And those are what I would call output goals. We put in certain work to get out certain rewards. Now, the output goals, we don't have 100% control over them. And what happens is, if you set goals based on things that you don't have 100% control over, it's a lot easier to get demotivated. So we don't want to stop here. We keep these what's kind of in our peripheral vision. It will guide the next steps. And so it's important that we actually start here and think about, what is that flashy thing that we want, but we cannot stop there. So think about the thing you want. It might be outside of your control. You want to get married this year. You want to have $10,000 a month in your business, 10,000 subscribers. We certainly have impact on those things, and we should be doing actions that will move us closer, but we cannot control the timeline. I couldn't put gain 1,000 subscribers on a to-do list. I could do actions, but not put those outputs on a to-do list. So whereas this is generally a noun, something that you want to have, the second thing we're going to look at is the how. So whereas this was a noun, something you wanted to have, this how is a verb. How are you going to do it? This is something that you could put on a to-do list. And I want to take a moment to just kind of brainstorm on the side. So for example, if you said by the end of the year you want to have a book deal, which is somewhat out of your control, but you could definitely take steps by writing the book. How you could get it? Well, we could brainstorm. Okay, maybe I could take a course on writing. I could outline. I could write the book. I could have a meeting with that author friend that I know. I could do interviews with my family members to see what type of books would be best. And we can kind of list out, just kind of like this brain dump bubble, all the things that we could do. Now, what I want us to zone in on by prioritizing is cutting off everything that's not going to have a meaningful impact. So if you make that list, all the things that you could do, meeting with people, taking a course, writing the book, think to yourself, if only one of those things could get done and I could go poof with a magic wand and tomorrow, poof, it's done, which would have the most meaningful impact? Would it be taking that course and doing those interviews and talking to your friends and just planning more? Or would it be writing the book? And whichever one that poof with magic wand would have the biggest impact, that's the one that we're gonna pick. That's how we're going to do it. And most things don't have a huge impact. We have a lot of ideas, but the biggest constraint that we have isn't, oh, we don't have the best ideas, or we haven't tried enough things. Usually the biggest constraint is we haven't executed enough on what we know works. Execution is the number one biggest constraint that people have. And if they would just execute more, that is, as far as the 80-20 rule goes, that is the 20% that has the biggest impact. Just execute more of what you already know works instead of learning and planning and talking to people and just delaying. And then 3, how many? And I think on the PDF, I actually go a little bit deeper into the why and the who, and there's a few more things, so you can check out that. There's a few more questions there. But this question is how many? So if you're going to write, how many chapters do you want? How many words do you want the book to be? We want to use numbers. So this is a noun, this is a verb, and this one is numbers. So to answer this question, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to step 1. And if you think, I want to have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. For question number 3, the question is, how many iterations of posting videos would you need to do to make it unreasonable that you wouldn't have 1,000 subscribers? So this is kind of a North Star that we keep in our peripheral vision. We don't focus on it, we don't obsess over it. You really want to keep it in your peripheral vision. And the focus is going to be posting those videos. So if I say I want to have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, how much would I have to do to make it unreasonable that I wouldn't get it? Like, well, if I posted 3 long form videos a day, that would be unreasonable. Maybe I don't need to do that much. Okay, let's scale it back a little bit. How much can I manage? So you're trying to balance between how much do you really want this goal and how much work are you willing to do to get that, and how much can you reasonably do? If you haven't really set off before on writing a book or writing music or starting a YouTube channel, I would just start with 20 minutes a day and build your way up, and just understand that maybe the what might need to change at first. And eventually you can up your iterations. Now this very simply captures, once we include with the next video that I'm going to do, everything included in SMART goals. It's specific, it's measurable. We're going to make an action plan in the next video and talk about making it time bound with deadlines. Because one thing to say, okay, I'm gonna write a book, and so I'm just gonna have the habit, I'm gonna sit down, and I'm gonna write 1 hour per day. And if you do not have benchmarks for how you know when you're done, then you will sit down to that creative thing. Okay, you'll work for an hour, you say, okay, great. The next day you sit down, like, oh, I'm gonna edit that a while. The next day you sit down, oh, I'm gonna edit that more. And that just grows and grows and grows, and the work will expand to the time that you give it. And before you know it, you are way off schedule because you never gave yourself any deadlines, because you thought, why should I give myself deadlines? That doesn't really make sense. But the reason it makes sense is because the work will then expand, and you will edit and edit and edit and edit with creative things. There needs to be a clear benchmark. I'm done when. And we need to create a sense of false urgency with shorter and shorter deadlines, which is why when we set yearly goals, sometimes people just will cram it in at the very end, they fall off by February, or they're not really doing much, or they forget about them. And so we need to have actually a specific action plan if it's something we really want. Because we need to remember, no one's telling us we have to do this. It's not a chore that we have to do, like changing our life, doing these meaningful projects, starting a fun YouTube channel, or writing a book, or starting music. Like, those are meaningful things that we're doing because we want to. And so if we really want to do those things, I think it's important to give ourselves kind of some guardrails. It's like, I always think of it, goals as kind of like we have like water with a riverbank. You have the water, which represents the creativity. And if there were no riverbanks, it would just be kind of like a flood, or if there was nowhere for it to go, and then that would eventually be a drought. It would just kind of all dry up. And that's kind of how creativity is. It's like, ooh, flood of motivation, drought. And it just oscillating back and forth between that. But what the riverbanks do, the goals, it gives the structure so that it's not a flood, so that it doesn't dry out eventually, and it gives this channel and this path to go through. We're gonna talk about action plans and how to actually execute on these goals in the next video. The other thing the next video is going to address is how many goals you should set. This takes you through like one main goal. You want to write the book or whatever it is, but what if you want to set other goals? How many goals should you have? Is it too many or not enough? And so that's something that I'll talk about, a methodology for knowing the correct number of goals to set in the next video. If you didn't fill out the worksheet, there's more questions than I listed here in that free worksheet. So check that out. That will be in the description. This is just a snippet, the smallest snippet. This is just the smallest snippet of the planner that I sell with visioning exercises and questions. So check that out. That will be in the description. I will also have the playlist to the next video so you can watch that when it comes out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.